Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today we will be talking about The Last of Us Part 2. And I know what you're thinking. Yes, I do play home console games that are rated M, that aren't Nintendo. I just don't get to them as much. And that's why I like to play handheld, is because handheld games kind of fill in the cracks throughout your day. You know, you get a second, you can pop out some Pokemon Mystery Dungeon or something. But I do enjoy console experiences from time to time, especially when it's a game that Autumn enjoys watching, because then she can be really included in the experience. Otherwise, if it's a game that she's not that interested in, like the first thing that comes to mind is maybe Doom 2016. Like, she'll just kind of hang out and be on her phone, but like we're not really actively participating in an activity together. And because The Last of Us Part 2 is such a narrative experience, it's really something that she can watch more like a TV series or something like that. So it's really something that we can sit down and talk about it with each other and like our feelings towards certain story beats. We had a similar experience to The Last of Us Part 1, and I absolutely love The Last of Us Part 1. I probably have replayed it like 5 times now. It's crazy. Like maybe once a year I would replay it. Maybe not once a year, but I digress. It was a really good game. I really enjoyed The Last of Us Part 1, and so I was really excited to get my hands on this one. I usually don't purchase new games because, you know, they're $60, and who has money for that? So this game was actually loaned to me by my buddy at work, Brandon, so shout out to him. And I just recently played through it. Unfortunately, I had to help my mom move yesterday, so I wasn't able to record this casual review quite like right after I finished the game. So I actually had maybe 48 hours to mull it over, kind of think about my thoughts about it and everything like that. I guess before we go any further, I do really want to hammer home there will be absolutely no narrative spoilers in this casual review. Before I got to this game and the hype leading up to it, I had a certain early spoiler, but it was pretty important, and it was spoiled to me by Podcast Beyond. That's right, I'm calling you guys out. They promised me that there would be no spoilers, and then they just dropped like a pretty major spoiler, and I was like, wait, what? And then like I wasn't sure if I heard it right, and then the next episode they're like, hey, sorry for spoiling The Last of Us Part 2, and I'm like, oh, that just solidifies it. So that really sucked, and I don't want to wish that on anyone, especially for a game like this that is so story driven. I will, however, talk about, I guess, what you could consider gameplay spoilers. And by that, I just mean maybe I do want to talk about the skill trees, like the abilities you unlock that maybe you don't start out with. Or perhaps I want to talk about a couple of the guns that you find throughout the game, or maybe some mechanics that weren't necessarily in the first one, you know, just kind of stuff like that. I would never spoil the narrative, but I just want to give you guys a heads up. I am going to be talking about a couple of the gameplay things that you don't necessarily start out with. Like I'll try to be considerate and not give anything away that's like important. Anyway, you have been warned on that front, but if I do give you any narrative story-driven spoilers, then you are free to hate me forever. So diving into the game, first of all, initial impressions, like, holy cow, this is a great looking game. Now, I just have the base PS4, I don't have the PS4 Pro, and I don't see myself getting it because PS5 is coming out. It's still such a great looking game. Like, sometimes the environments are just so alive and colorful, and you can just see the light shining through the trees, and like the sound is just so peaceful. Or like it's insane. It like, I know we're supposed to be looking at the next generation, looking what the PS5 and the new Xbox can accomplish, but I'm just surprised they're able to pull something off like this with the PlayStation 4. It's really a great looking game. Now, admittedly, some of the character models, like in-game, if you turn the camera around and you'll like look at Ellie, her face doesn't look great. Like, more like PlayStation 3 graphics. but the cinematics themselves are just top notch. Really just a gorgeous game, and you can definitely tell that they put a ton of work into this one. So how this game kind of works is it's like a third person view over the shoulder, and then when you aim it goes to you can like see the reticle of your gun, and it's more first person view that way, and you're just going through this post-apocalyptic world full of like these zombies, but they can be infected by these fungal spores, and that's what turns them into a zombie. It's called a cordyceps, is the fungal strain, I guess you would call it. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I actually found out that these cordyceps are in fact real, which is kind of spooky. But they only affect bugs, and basically they like infect the bug's brain and tell the bug where to go, and they like live off of the bug until the bug dies, and then like spores come from the bug to go infect more bugs. And so it's basically the same thing but for humans, so they like control the humans' brains, and depending on how long the human has been infected by this cordyceps is like how powerful they get, how grotesque they get. So like the basic like, oh, I just got infected, you're more like a running zombie. Think kind of like World War Z zombies, I guess. And then as you go along, they get blind, but they can use like echolocation clicking to find out where you are. And like those zombies can insta-kill you, and then you get infected more, and like it just goes from there. And so that's like half of the enemies that you face throughout the game. The other half is the surviving humans in this post-apocalyptic world. And you're just trying to kind of like navigate your way through zombies and like marauders in like this Seattle like wasteland basically. And it really does have like a lot of different varieties of scenery, I guess. Like you go through like these urban apartments and stuff, sure, but then there's also like moments where you're going through a forest, or like underground in the sewers, or a hospital, you know, locations like that. And I think it was a little more variety compared to the first The Last of Us. While we're on the topic of exploring this post-apocalyptic world, this game gives me such a bad case of FOMO. For those of you who don't know, fear of missing out. And the reason for that is because it is a fairly linear game, but there's like different multiple branching paths, and there is some pretty good stuff that you can miss. Like the most open world part that I can think of is in your like this open city block, and like Ellie will pull out a map, and there will be buildings everywhere, and you can go explore all these buildings. And in some of them, there's just stuff that you could totally miss out on, and you'd be like new guns. Like I'll just say, because I warned you that there would be gameplay spoilers. So you actually can miss out on getting a shotgun. It's crazy. Like from the very beginning of the game, they train you like, hey, you got to search every nook and cranny. There's pills to upgrade your guy. There's scrap metal to upgrade your guns. Oh, and by the way, you can just miss out on a whole gun. Like if you didn't go in this building and you just continue on with the story, I guess you just don't have a shotgun for the rest of the game. Unless, I don't know if they did this or not, but maybe there's some way that if you happen to miss an important object on the side trail, eventually like they'd put it later into the game. I'm not quite sure how that works, so maybe I will hold that criticism for now. But it really does give me a bad case of FOMO, and I feel like I spent maybe half the game searching every nook and cranny, trying to get all the parts, and gotta make sure I have all the crafting equipment. And even though I was like max on everything for most of the game, and by max of everything I mean like the ingredients to craft like Molotov cocktails and stuff, and arrows and stuff like that. And so you know, I was just max on everything, but I just felt this drive because I didn't want to miss out on any of the pills to upgrade Ellie, or like any of the scrap metal or anything like that. So every time I would go to the next scene and I wasn't able to backtrack, I always, in the back of my mind, I always thought to myself, like, what did I just miss? Like, oh man, I just missed a second holster for my big guns, didn't I? So I learned pretty quickly that if a door or like a entrance is halfway open, then if you go through it, you're not going to be able to come back. So if it's like a completely closed door, I can't think of any case where it was completely closed and you couldn't backtrack. But if it's partially open, you better make sure that you explored everything that you wanted to in that area, because you're not coming back. And I do believe there's a chapter select option. I only found that out after I beat the game. I'm not sure if that was unlocked or if that was always a feature, but like as you're playing through this game, it's not really the type of game you want to replay the chapter over and over again. It's kind of like a play through the whole game kind of experience. So that's just one of my little gripes. As for the combat itself, it's if you played The Last of Us Part 1 or Uncharted 4, it's kind of similar where you have guys just wandering around a space, be it infected or regular humans, and you have the option to crouch or go prone, and if you sneak up behind them, you can like choke them out, but that takes a while and someone else can see you if you're trying to choke someone out. Or like if you just want to run and gun, you can do that, certainly, but ammo and supplies is limited more than if you were playing a game such as Halo. Initially, I played really sneaky, I would just go and stab people very, very silently, try not to get caught. And if I did get caught, I was able to run away pretty quickly and they would lose sight of me. In some sneaky games, it seems like if you are caught, then they just know where you are at all times. Not the case in this one. In this one, if you get caught, don't panic, don't worry. You could easily run off and crouch in some bushes and they will lose track of you so fast. So it's really not a big deal to get caught. Eventually, I kind of got a little bored with the sneaky system, and I realized that I was just maxed out on all my like crafting equipment and everything, and so I was just kind of obtained a use it or lose it mentality. Like I maxed out on these Molotov cocktails, I might as well use them. I have max pistol ammo, might as well use them, And so that is where I really started to enjoy the combat a lot more than just like crouching behind them and sneaking up and choking them out and then going to the next side. Those encounters played that way take so long. So eventually I learned that like, hey, it's fun to use all your gadgets. Like one of my favorite things to do is you can craft a silencer for your pistol, and if you get a headshot, they're down and it's just completely quiet and no one can hear you. And so I got so good at aiming with this silenced pistol and just taking out a whole group without them even noticing. I think that's a better weapon than the arrow, because the arrow you have to like charge up and like it arcs down. Granted, you can retrieve your arrows, but I feel like the pistol ammo was a lot more abundant than getting arrows. And so yeah, you have so many tools at your disposal. You can like throw bottles to like stun someone and go up and hit them. I know this game was focused a little more on melee combat, more than the first one, that is, but I never really used melee combat. I always just stuck to like my bombs and my shotgun. I loved my shotgun because like the shotgun I felt like was so strong because like if they're even any sort of remote distance towards you, like you just automatically kill them and you don't even have to aim. So yeah, guys, like use it or lose it. I know that it's like a mentality in games, like I'm gonna hoard all these potions until I get to the boss, and then you get to the boss and you never use them. I do that all the time, and I really am trying to teach myself like, hey, they give these to you for a reason. You're gonna find more. It'll be a lot more fun and entertaining if you switch around your tactics and use everything at your disposal whenever you want it. While we're on the topic of combat, there are dogs, and these dogs don't like you that much. I'm not gonna call them bad boys because they are just doing what their master trains them to do. So in a way, if you're on the other side, they're very good boys and girls. But these dogs will sniff you out. So like if you're trying to hide, they will catch onto your scent, and there are times you're gonna have to kill dogs. And if you know anything about me, I like dogs. I like dogs a lot, and I would never think of hurting my pooch. And so whenever these encounters would happen, and I just hated having to kill the dog, I would like pause and go pet my dog because I love him so much. He's such a good boy. And I don't like that this game makes you do that. I know it's a silly gripe, but surely, like, this game has so many different options. Like, you can, if you're colorblind, you can do that. It has like so much accessibility and options to change around. Why not just turn off dogs? You know, like, we don't need to kill dogs. I know it's weird because like I'm killing humans, but dogs are just so innocent, and I know that they're fake dogs, but I hate that like dog whine noise when dogs get hurt, and so it was actually pretty upsetting for me in a way, and I guess that's the whole point of this game. Is it's supposed to be upsetting. It's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. It's supposed to make you feel tense. But, like, yeah, we could do that option. Upgrade trees. I did not like them too much. Well, that's not true. I would get excited about certain upgrades as I went along. But the upgrades, they were nothing too special, I guess. It's like, hey, instead of crafting one Molotov cocktail, you get to craft two. That's pretty exciting. Oh, hey, you can craft even faster now. And hey, what if you had 25% extra health? You know, there was things like that. And granted, they were helpful, and I was excited to get these upgrades, but no like special abilities or anything like that necessarily. It's just most of it is like being able to boost up your stats or like your time to do something. So I think that about covers the combat. Let's just talk about the normal gameplay beats, I guess you could say. Like normally, if you're familiar with the newer Naughty Dog games, they like to partner you up with someone, and then your main character and your partner will like chat with each other as you're moving along, or so like you'll fight like a group of enemies, and then you'll talk to each other like, hey, what was your old job? In the first one, Ellie and Joel really had that dynamic where you'll fight a group of enemies, and then Ellie will ask Joel like, hey, what was the old world like before all of this zombie stuff happened? And in this game there is that, but maybe to a lesser degree. So instead of the first one where Ellie and Joel are pretty much together the whole time, in this one you're kind of switching up partners a lot, so you don't get to see that relationship build and grow quite as much, because you're just always switching them up, so you don't get the whole game to build up that relationship, to learn, so each character can learn as much as they can about each other. There's also a lot more times where you're by yourself, and I didn't necessarily like these moments because I really live for the narration, the story beats, the dialogue. That's why I really liked the first one. And so when you're by yourself, you know, you kill a group of enemies, and Ellie would be like, oh man, like, whew, I hope that was it. And like, that's her way of telling us, the player, like, that's it, you're good to explore now. And yeah, I didn't like those parts as much. I really miss the times when I'm with a partner and I can have that back and forth dialogue to keep the story beats going. Also, in the first one, I feel like the dialogue and the story beats and the cinematics would happen after almost each encounter, whereas in this one I felt like there was a good 2 or 3 encounters before the next cinematic would happen. And I know a lot of people complained about the cinematics in this one. They felt like, well, you might as well just watch a movie. But I always kind of felt in video games the cinematics, the story beats were my reward for playing through the encounter, for being able to defeat it. Like, first thing that comes to mind, maybe Kingdom Hearts. You know, the gameplay itself was the gameplay itself was always good, but like I always did the gameplay to see what happens next in the story. That was my reward, is the video, the cinematic. And so that's why I like the first one, because while I do like the combat in both of these games, the cinematics are the real reason, like the real reason why I play. And it is different in a way than watching a movie. I can't explain why. I guess I feel a little more engaged when I do those encounters and then get the cinematic afterwards. I bet a lot of people like this better because there's more encounters between each story beat, but I prefer encounter, story beat. I know it sounds like I'm kind of nitpicking here. I know it sounds like there's just like a lot of filler, but actually this game was quite the contrary. I didn't feel like there was was a ton of filler in this game, like most open world games would be. Granted, there are like collectibles along the way, but this isn't like this huge sprawling open world full of bandit camps and like icons on the map for you to take out. This is just you're going along like a path. Granted, it's a pretty wide path. It's pushing you towards a certain direction, if that makes sense. And you can find little collectibles and hidden guns and upgrades and stuff as you go along. And so I didn't feel like it was as pointless and time fillery as other games are. So like I mentioned before, I had let's say 48 hours-ish, maybe a little less time to dwell on the whole story, and I just want to reiterate, I will not be talking about any story spoilers. The story is pretty special, and I know a lot of people, after I beat the game, I kind of went back and watched all the YouTube videos that I missed because they actually take a deep dive into the Last of Us Part 2 story, and I know a lot of people didn't like this story or enjoy it, but I really did. And I think I've been thinking about the story beats, the story moments over the last 2 days, and they've really hit me hard. How do I explain this? Like, the longer I have to dwell on it, the more I enjoy it. Kind of like, exactly like a really good movie. You have time to reflect on it, and you have time to dwell on the things that it didn't flat out say, but maybe that it would hint at. Or I really like the moral and the ethical dilemmas that this game dived into. And I know, I apologize, I'm struggling not to talk about any spoilers. It gives you a ton to think about what your morals are, what you believe in, what you think is ethically right, what you think is ethically just. And I feel like any game that manages to make you think that way about yourself, and if you're still thinking about it days after the game is over, it's a special story. It's got a couple moments in there that I think will stay with me forever, much like the first one. Like, Autumn and I would just have these conversations after we play through like a major part in the game, and it's almost like a book club. Like, we'll sit in the front room and, oh, what do you think about that? Like, what do you think his intentions are? Or, like, was she right to do that? And it was special, and it was a nice bonding moment between us to be able to sit down and talk about that kind of stuff and really get to know each other. Like, we've been married for a long time, and just to be able to hear her thoughts on this kind of stuff that we wouldn't normally think about or talk about. And if a game manages to do that, it's got to be pretty great in my book. In my opinion, it's really where this game shines. I enjoyed the gameplay, but like, man, that story, I don't think I'll ever forget this game. And if a game manages to do that, I would be remiss to not give this game a 5 out of 5. I know lots of people didn't like it, or maybe just in my feed I just saw a lot of negative press about it, but it is an amazing game. I'm just gonna flat out say it, and I really hope that Naughty Dog continues to thrive and come out with experiences like this for a really long time. So guys, I feel like I kind of dropped down the mood there, but I guess that's kind of what this game is. It's a very very depressing game, but also an experience that I really recommend having. So as long as you're mentally prepared, it's kind of a downer, but it does have a lot of uplifting moments. Really, guys, play this game. I really liked it. I guess I already said everything there is to be said about this game. So if you have any questions about how I felt about the actual story, and like if you had just recently played this game and you want to like take deep dives into the spoilers, and if you want to have a little book club with me, just send me a direct message and I would love to talk about it with you. If you have any other questions about the game, let me know and I'll be happy to answer them. I admit I'm not the best Last of Us player, so to speak. Like, I got caught a lot. I don't know if I could do the hardest mode, but I do now know a lot about it, so I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about it. Otherwise, guys, I guess I'll talk to you later. Thanks for listening to another casual review, and I will talk to you later. Bye!